So I've heard players say, including myself, I feared Mike. I've heard players in your generation say they feared Kobe. I've never really heard any players say they fear LeBron.
And then like the generation, they talk so much shit about the game today. And it make you go back and watch the game back then. And it makes you not even want to appreciate it no more like I did when I was a kid. Like it was like.
These are the moments when Shaquille O'Neal.
Let's talk about the time Shaq straight up doubted LeBron's so-called fear factor, his whole legacy, and whether he's even that great. For over a decade, Shaq's been dropping these massive truth bombs that the mainstream media is honestly too chicken to touch. But in March of 2024, he said something so raw it literally shook the entire basketball world to its core. Now look, let's be real here. This isn't just about being a LeBron hater. We're dissecting why one of the most dominant forces to ever play the game, a guy who actually sat in the same locker room as LeBron, still won't call him the greatest player of all time. Wait until you hear Shaq's take on fear, on that killer instinct, and what really separates Bron from the old-school legends. You'll finally get why fans from the Jordan era can't put him on that level. So, back in March of 2024, on his own show, The Big Podcast with Shaq, with his former Heat teammate Mario Chalmers, Shaq dropped a line that set the internet on fire. It went right for the throat of the GOAT debate. Once he put it out there was no going back. Everyone felt it. Here's exactly what he said. Look, I've heard players say, myself included, that they genuinely feared Mike. I've heard guys from your generation say they were terrified of Kobe. But I've never once heard a player say they feared LeBron. And when people tried to argue, Shaq didn't even blink. He doubled down. LeBron tried to fire back on Instagram, bragging that his double-digit scoring streak was longer than Shaq's whole career. It's a flashy stat, sure, but it completely missed the entire point Shaq was trying to make. Because at the end of the day, stats don't tell you who's feared. That was Shaq's point. Nobody is actually scared of him. That comment cut deep, and the reality behind it is even harsher, because in this game, fear is respect. Fear is dominance. Fear means you step onto the court knowing there's a good chance you might get embarrassed tonight. Mario Chalmers, who actually grabbed 2 rings playing right next to LeBron in Miami, explained the situation perfectly, and man, it was brutal. He mentioned LeBron wanted to be liked, which sounds fine until you compare him to Jordan or Kobe, 2 guys who wanted to destroy you. They didn't care about being your friend, and they definitely didn't care if you smiled for a picture after the game. They wanted you terrified to even guard them. Mario said he never felt players feared Bron like they did MJ. He never heard anyone say it. It's not that you shouldn't respect his game, it's just that LeBron's been through so much, he really just wanted to be liked by everyone. So it was basically like, yeah, he's just a good dude. Yeah, I'm gonna do things to be liked. See, that's the mentality that separates the cold-blooded killers from the mere competitors. And here is the thing, this isn't anything new. The seeds of this criticism were planted years ago. In November of 2011, Shaq put out his memoir, Shaq Uncut, and he was already calling LeBron out back then. What he shared about playing with LeBron during that 2009 to 2010 season in Cleveland was pretty damning. It's the kind of stuff that usually stays buried because nobody wants to say it out loud. But Shaq did. He wrote about Coach Mike Brown being soft. He wrote that, our coach, Mike Brown, was a good man, but he lived in fear because nobody was supposed to ever be confrontational with LeBron. Nobody wanted him to walk away from Cleveland, so they basically let him do whatever he felt like doing. The whole organization was so petrified of LeBron leaving that they let him live by a different set of rules than the rest of the team. That kind of double standard is a massive problem when building a winning culture. Shaq even broke down one specific ugly moment in Cleveland. During a film session, LeBron didn't hustle back on defense after missing a shot, and Coach Mike Brown didn't say a single word. But on the very next clip, when Mo Williams did the same thing, suddenly Brown blew up on him in front of the whole room. Yo, Mo, we can't have that. That's when Delonte West stood up and called out the hypocrisy right to Shaq's face. Shaq said Delonte told the room that everyone needs to be held accountable for their actions, not just some of the guys. And yet, nothing changed. LeBron was untouchable. Just let that sink in for a minute. Can you imagine Jordan or Kobe getting that kind of treatment? You think Phil Jackson would just let them skip defense without saying anything? No way. Phil would have benched them right then and there, regardless of how big of a superstar they were. But with LeBron, the rules were just different, and honestly, they always have been. And Shaq didn't just stop there either. Writing about the 2010 Eastern Finals and that 2011 disaster, he questioned Bron's grit when things got tough. And that hits a lot harder when it's coming from a guy who was actually there, watching it all unfold in person. Shaq noted that LeBron looked totally checked out during Game 5. I always figured he could just flip a switch whenever, but for some reason, he just didn't. That is a heavy statement, and honestly, he is spot on. It didn't happen against the Celtics back in 2010, and the Mavericks series was the same. It felt off, Shaq confessed. Being a playmaker is great, but at some point you've got to be the man. Then he dropped a truth bomb that still stings today. I'm watching the Dallas game, and they're moving the ball around. He gets this wide-open look, and instead of taking it, he passes to Mario Chalmers. It makes zero sense. That isn't salt, it is a guy who has been there. Remember, Shaq shared the floor with both LeBron and Kobe. He has lived and breathed that championship DNA. When he weighed how each of them handled coaching, the contrast was impossible to ignore. I wasn't sure if Kobe would ever listen to Mike Brown, Shaq noted. LeBron? He never did, but here is the bottom line. Kobe was always going to be the boss. That's not a compliment for LeBron. Shaq was making a very specific point. Kobe had that alpha dog energy LeBron lacked and maybe always will. Fast forward to June 2015, Shaq's sitting with Dan Patrick. He gets hit with the big one. Kobe or LeBron? No pause, no fluff. Just a split-second reaction. Kobe. Why? Simple. Killer instinct. But what if we're talking about both of them in their absolute prime? Well, look, I would definitely play with either of them, but you know, Kobe just has that cold-blooded killer instinct. At the end of the day, I am probably picking Kobe. That one phrase keeps coming up because it is the line between being good and being a god. It is why Jordan took the final shot even when his rhythm was off, and why Kobe dropped 81 points, because losing simply wasn't an option. That refuse-to-lose mindset is what defines true greatness. Later that year, at an ESPN promo in Hong Kong, Shaq doubled down on the comparison. He argued that a young LeBron was more like Magic Johnson, basically Magic with Jordan's physical tools. He loved the assist, loved getting his teammates involved, but MJ was just different. He was on a completely different level. Notice the comparison. Shaq put LeBron next to Magic, not Mike. That says it all. Magic is easily a top 5 legend, but he is not in that untouchable GOAT tier with Jordan, and Shaq says LeBron isn't either. Then in June 2021, when LeBron bitched about the NBA's grueling schedule after a wave of injuries, Shaq shut it down. If you are pulling in $30 million, playing 80 games should be the standard. Okay, 2 quick things. Go. So, you want $30 million to show up for 30 games? Absolutely not. 80 games is fine. I did it, Jerry West did it, Kareem, Magic, Bird, Bernard King, basically every legend before us did it. He fired back, basically saying, this is where the generational gap really shows. Jordan went out there for 82 games every single season without a single complaint. I couldn't believe a player could earn $1 million. Now, these guys are so blessed, yet they can't hoop 3 or 4 days a week? And I get it. They hide behind all that analytical garbage from their agents and whoever else. What they're really doing is trying to stretch their careers. With the way the money's flowing, you're going to bank another $50, $70, or even $100 million by sticking around an extra 2 or 3 years. Shaq played through the grind too, dominating every single night. They didn't invent load management or moan about the schedule. They showed up, took care of business, and let their game do the talking. No excuses, no whining, just straight results. By October 2022, Shaq made his stance clear again on Logan Paul's podcast. He finally revealed his official list of the 10 greatest players ever. I think the absolute greatest is Michael Jordan. LeBron is about to pull off something we haven't seen in forever. But for me, it's always going to be guys like Dr. J, Michael Jordan, and Magic, and those legends. And the lineup said everything about his real thoughts on LeBron. Curry at the 1. Wait, Curry? Okay. Kobe at the 2. Yep. Jordan at the 3. Tim Duncan at the 4. Got it. And me at the 5. This wasn't some random talking heads hot take. This was coming straight from Shaquille O'Neal, a 15-time All-Star, 4-time champ, 3-time Finals MVP, and someone who actually shared a locker room with both LeBron and Kobe. When he talks legacy, you listen because he's seen it firsthand. After decades of battling, winning, and watching legends up close, his final conclusion just couldn't be any clearer. To him, it is a no-brainer. Jordan is the greatest ever. Kobe is number 2. LeBron takes the 3 spot. No argument, no hesitation, just the truth from one of the most dominant forces ever. The real sting doesn't come from a simple rank. See, Shaq keeps snubbing LeBron when building his dream starting lineup. Just process that. He rolls with MJ, Kobe, Magic, and Duncan, but King James? He never makes the cut. That quiet rejection screams way louder than some petty insult. It is a massive, unmistakable statement. Sure, Shaq acknowledges the man's talent, but he is not buying the hype. On his podcast, the big man explained why those longevity records are actually kind of misleading. He's offering a perspective that only a guy who dominated the paint can actually provide. Ask him if the league has gone soft, and he won't blink. He answered with the cold truth earned through years of literal on-court combat. Look, it is what it is. I am telling you, our era was just meant to be more stressful. You look at this current game, whatever they call it, and you just see the difference. To me, the 80s and 90s were 10 times tougher than this. This new style? It is soft. Nowadays, you touch a guy and get a flagrant, a fine, or a straight-up suspension. Nobody even lays a real foul on anyone anymore. It was wild back then, even before my time, but the 80s and 90s were just a bloodbath. Still, you gotta respect LeBron's endurance. That part is truly incredible. He is the #1 scorer ever. Fact. But do not pretend he did that in the same savage league that MJ and Kobe survived. Shaq pointed out that LeBron stacked numbers when hand-checking was banned and hard fouls became grounds for an immediate ejection or fine. Contrast that with Jordan, who was literally getting beat down by those bad boy Pistons every night. Kobe owned a game where defenders could still legally body you. But LeBron, in this era, if you even look at him funny, he is heading to the free throw line. Call it hate if you want, but it is just context. People get salty, but I am just calling what I see. I know what real greatness looks like. I lived it. And honestly, I do not see that same fire in today's game. When people labeled Shaq a hater, he shut it down immediately. Nonsense. Label it hate if you need to. But seriously, these kids today just love throwing that word around like it means nothing. If I am legendary and you are just not, how could I possibly be hating? It makes zero sense. That is just having high standards. He is making a point. He is not just trashing the new guys, he is just refusing to move the goalposts for what elite looks like. These modern stars have publicists and social media armies guarding their reputations round the clock. But Shaq, he grabbed respect by force, bruising people in the paint every single night. And look, he is definitely not the only one. There is an entire choir of legends singing the same tune. Charles Barkley even laid it out on Bill Simmons' show. Apparently, if you do not crown him the GOAT, you are basically a traitor. If you do not say LeBron is the best ever, it is treason. You could practically taste the sarcasm in his voice. Then Scottie Pippen joined in back in February 2019, dropping some heavy shade. He flat out said LeBron is not on MJ's level. He is not even in the same league as Kobe either. When you start comparing instincts, the drive to hijack a game, or the hunger to take that final deciding shot, that instinct to crush your soul and terrify you, LeBron just does not have that specific gene in his DNA. Kevin Garnett claimed on a podcast that his Celtics squad actually broke LeBron's Cavaliers, mentally speaking, back in the day. Seriously, listen up. The Celtics did not give a damn about LeBron James. We did not fear him. We never believed he could take on all 5 of us at once. That was the vibe. He wanted to team up because he could not handle the solo pressure. Even Magic Johnson kept it real at InvestFest 2025. Jordan is just on another plane of existence. Don't misunderstand, I like LeBron, but no. Nope. This is not just one grumpy old man with an axe to grind. This is a whole council of basketball icons saying the quiet part out loud. LeBron is elite, sure, but he is no Mike or Kobe. He lacks that internal fire, the jagged edge that set those guys apart. But hey, to be fair, Shaq has given the man his props before. Back in October 2022, Shaq defended him, asking how anyone without a killer instinct could possibly drop 38,000 points. He isn't ignoring the talent. He just refuses to mistake long-term consistency for being a cold-blooded assassin on the court. Fast forward to 2024 on his podcast with JJ Redick. Shaq actually called LeBron the best young leader he had ever witnessed, admitting LeBron had everything locked down when they played in Cleveland together. He was genuinely impressed. That is high praise from Diesel. So this is not a hit piece, it is about clear-cut definitions. Shaq is simply drawing a hard line between being an all-timer and being the undisputed greatest of all time. To Shaq, LeBron stays firmly in that first bracket. A top 3 legend? Definitely. A player who did things we will never see again? No doubt about it. But the absolute greatest? Not quoting Leisure Paction. Leisurely sleep before they had to face Jordan. He doesn't have that cold, relentless fire that drove Kobe to drop 81 just to prove a point. He started the super team era, a time where winning was shared rather than truly earned. And that is a massive difference that icons like Shaquille will never overlook. Rather than crushing his competition, LeBron has thrived in a league that has gone soft. An era where defense is banned, contact is whistled, and numbers look way bigger than reality. When you put him right next to Mike and Kobe, forget the box scores. But the mindset, the clutch gene, and how they broke people physically and mentally, LeBron falls short every single time. And that is exactly why Shaq's take hits so different. This isn't some analyst behind a desk or a random fanboy on Twitter. This is Shaq, the Big Diesel. 4 rings, 3 Finals MVPs, 15 All-Star nods, and he earned every one of them back when you had to bleed for buckets. Shaq dominated a league full of real monsters, not just highlight reels and TikTok clips. His words carry serious weight. He played with both LeBron and Kobe, meaning he saw the gaps up close in the gym, in the locker room, under fire. He knows what real greatness looks and feels like. So when Shaq gives a verdict after decades of war and watching, it is not an opinion, it is testimony. He has been consistent since day one. Jordan is the greatest. Kobe is number 2. LeBron is 3rd. Period. That isn't hate, it isn't jealousy. That is just the truth from someone who has actually been there. Someone who beat legends every single night for a living. Shaq isn't denying LeBron's stats. He's just exposing the fact that numbers alone do not make you the greatest. The real sting isn't that LeBron is overrated. It's that despite all the records and the polished media machine, he still lacks those invisible traits that made Jordan and Kobe mythical. He doesn't have that fear factor that froze opponents before the tip-off even happened. He lacks that killer instinct that made Kobe snatch the ball and dare anyone to stop him. LeBron wanted to be liked, but in this cutthroat game, it is the feared ones who become immortal. Mike wanted your heart. Kobe wanted your soul. LeBron just wanted your approval. And that is why he will never take their throne, no matter how many points he scores, how long he stays, or how much the media tries to sell us the narrative. Shaq has been saying this for over 10 years now, loud and clear. Maybe it is time we finally listened. What is your take? Does LeBron really belong in the same breath as Mike and Kobe, or is Shaq right to keep him at number 3? Let me know in the comments, hit that like button, share this with a real hoop fan, and do not forget to subscribe. I will see you in the next one.